Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Most mornings used to start with the smell of coffee and Lila humming in the kitchen. Soft, lazy tunes that used to make our small apartment feel alive. Lately, though, I'd wake to the faint sound of her phone buzzing before sunrise and the way she'd whisper, "Go back to sleep, Daniel," when I asked who it was. We'd been married 7 years, long enough to know when something had changed, and short enough for her to still pretend nothing had. She worked as a project coordinator at a marketing firm downtown, where office parties happened more often than pay raises. She said her boss encouraged team bonding, though I noticed she came home later each night, her perfume stronger and her laughter thinner. I wasn't a jealous husband, at least not by nature. I just noticed details. How she'd stop setting 2 plates for dinner. How she'd take calls on the balcony, pretending to be checking emails. How she started saying my name less, like it was a reminder she didn't want. I ran an auto garage out on the west side of town. Honest work. Grease, sweat, busted knuckles, but paid the bills. I used to drive home proud, covered in oil stains, eager to see her smile. Now I'd pull into the driveway and just sit there, hands on the wheel, trying to gather enough strength to walk into another cold conversation. "Long day," she'd ask without looking up from her phone. "Yeah," I'd say, hoping she'd look at me. She wouldn't. "Dinner's in the fridge," she'd add, scrolling, her reflection glowing off the screen. I'd laugh softly to myself sometimes, thinking how love could turn into a routine so mechanical that even silence became predictable. Still, I stayed. You don't just walk out on 7 years, not until you're sure the foundation's gone. One Friday, she mentioned we'd been invited to dinner by her friends from work. Said it'd be good to get out, to meet more successful people. The word stung a little. Successful, like I wasn't. But I agreed. I wanted to believe maybe she was trying, maybe the distance could fade. The night came, and she looked stunning. A crimson dress, golden earrings, that confidence she used to wear like armor. "You look beautiful," I said quietly as she slipped on her heels. She smiled half-heartedly. "Let's try not to talk about car grease tonight, okay?" That one sentence sat in my chest like a stone. The restaurant she chose was expensive, too expensive. The kind where people didn't just eat, they performed success. We were meeting Grant and his date, Amber. I'd heard his name before, too many times. Grant this, Grant that, Grant's hilarious. He was the type of man who walked like the world owed him a favor, a sales executive with perfect teeth and a watch that probably cost more than my truck. The moment he shook my hand, I saw the glimmer in his eyes that said he already thinks he's better than you. Dinner started pleasantly enough, though the undertones were sharp. Grant did most of the talking, his business trips, his networking events, all while Lila laughed at every word like it was gold. I caught the way her eyes lingered on him when she thought I wasn't looking. I forced myself to stay composed, to act normal. I even laughed once or twice, sipping water while they drowned themselves in wine. But somewhere deep down, something had already broken, the kind of fracture that doesn't heal. Then came the moment. Grant joked about wives who can't handle real ambition, and Lila leaned forward, her voice smooth and cruel. "Oh, mine's harmless." Daniel's sweet, like a warm-up before the main course. The table erupted in laughter. My heart didn't. For a moment, I stared at her, the woman I once built a life with, and saw someone I didn't recognize. Someone who'd rather impress strangers than protect the man who loved her through everything. I smiled, not out of amusement, but finality. The kind of smile you give before turning the last page of a book you no longer want to finish. But I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just nodded once and said softly, "Then I hope you enjoy your meal." The table went silent. Even the waiter froze. I stood, left a tip big enough to cover the damage, and walked out into the cold night without looking back. She didn't know it then, but that was the last time Lila would ever see me as her husband. When I walked out of that restaurant, the night air hit me like a slap, sharp, cold, and strangely freeing. I didn't feel anger anymore, just emptiness. The kind of hollow space that comes after you've poured out every ounce of emotion into someone who never deserved it. I drove without knowing where I was going. The city lights blurred in my rearview mirror as Lila's laughter replayed in my head, over and over, like a cruel echo I couldn't silence. Every time I thought about that smirk she gave me, the one that told everyone I was beneath her, something inside me hardened. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house looked foreign. Her car wasn't there. I didn't expect it to be. I walked inside, turned on the lights, and everything looked too neat, too staged, like no one had really lived there in months. I sat on the couch and stared at our framed wedding photo. Her head was resting on my shoulder, eyes full of promises that, back then, I believed were real. By midnight, my phone buzzed. "Lila, where are you?" That was immature. "Me home." "You." "Lila, out with friends." "Don't wait up." No apology. No shame. Just arrogance. That message told me everything I needed to know. The next few days, I went through the motions, fixing engines, answering customer calls, pretending nothing was wrong. But every night, I'd lie awake, my mind connecting dots I didn't want to see. The late nights, the perfume, the private calls. Grant. One evening, my coworker Tony, a quiet, loyal guy who'd been at the garage for years, pulled me aside. "You okay, man? You've been zoning out." "I'm fine," I lied. He hesitated, then said softly, "Did you know your wife came by the shop last week? When you were out picking up parts?" My head shot up. "What?" "She was with that guy, Grant, I think. Drove up in some silver BMW. They didn't see me. That was the final piece. I didn't need to see more. I just nodded and thanked him." That night, I packed a small bag, quietly taking the essentials, documents, cash, a few clothes. Then I sat down and drafted an email. Calm, professional, no emotion. "Lila, I've signed a transfer for your car. You'll find the paperwork on the kitchen counter. The house lease is under my name. I'll be moving out by the end of the week. Consider this your space now. I'm done trying to fix something that's already been broken beyond repair. Daniel." I hit send and turned off my phone. But I didn't just disappear. I had a plan, not for revenge at first, but for peace. I rented a small apartment above an old bookstore near the river. The owner, Mrs. Green, was a widow who rented it cheap, no questions asked. I spent days helping her with repairs and nights working late shifts. It was quiet, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. A week later, I ran into an old friend, Jared, who ran a photography studio across town. He offered me part-time work fixing his equipment and helping with his van. It wasn't glamorous, but kept my mind busy. Then one afternoon, Jared came in holding his camera. "You're not going to believe this," he said, chuckling awkwardly. He turned the screen toward me. There she was, Lila, in the same red dress from that dinner, standing way too close to Grant outside a hotel downtown. His hand on her waist, her head tilted, smiling like a woman who'd already rewritten her vows. I didn't say anything, didn't yell, didn't even blink. I just said, "Send me that photo." That night, I printed it. Not out of pain, but as a reminder of who she truly was. Days turned into weeks. She didn't call. Neither did I. But I knew it wouldn't last. People like Lila, who live off attention, always circle back when the spotlight shifts away. And I was right. 3 weeks later, my phone lit up at midnight. "Lila, Daniel, can we talk?" Her voice trembled. "It's not what you think." I almost laughed. What I think? Which part? The lies or the laughter? Grant and I, things didn't work out. He's not who I thought. Oh, I bet he isn't. I made a mistake. "No," I said calmly. "You made a choice." She cried quietly for a while before whispering, "Can I come home?" I paused, staring at the photo on my wall. Her and Grant, smiling like I never existed. "You already are," I said finally. "Home is wherever the truth finds you. For now, that's not here." Then I hung up. I didn't block her, not yet. I wanted her to stew in silence, to know that the man she mocked wasn't broken, just finished. I knew she'd try again, maybe show up at my door pretending to change. And when she did, I'd be ready. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the sound of a locked door and a man who's finally learned to stop begging for love that never respected him. 3 days after that late-night call, I heard a soft knock on my apartment door. It was early, barely past sunrise, and I already knew who it was before I opened it. Through the peephole, I saw Lila. Her makeup was smudged, hair messy, eyes swollen. She looked nothing like the woman who'd laughed at me across that dinner table. She stood there clutching her purse like a lifeline, her knuckles white against the handle. "Daniel," she whispered when I opened the door crack. Please, can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, calm. You're up early. She swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. The hallway light flickered between us. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. I studied her, the woman I'd once thought was my whole world, and realized she looked smaller now. Not physically, but in presence. Like the arrogance had drained out of her. You said you wanted real men, I said quietly. How's that going? Her lips trembled. He used me, Daniel. Grant wasn't serious. He found someone else. I didn't know who he really was. I almost laughed. Maybe that's because you were too busy not knowing who you were. Tears rolled down her cheeks, soft at first, then freely. I made a mistake. I just wanted to feel noticed again. You were always so busy with the garage, with work. I thought you stopped caring. That's the difference between us, Lila, I said, my tone steady. When I felt unnoticed, I worked harder for you. When you felt unnoticed, you looked for someone else. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stopped her. Don't, I said. Don't insult both of us by pretending it just happened. For a long moment, all I could hear was her quiet sobbing. The same woman who'd once made me feel small now stood begging for a second chance. Please, Daniel, let me make it right. I'll leave my job, You already did. I interrupted. Just not for the reason you think. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I stepped back and let her see the envelope on the kitchen counter. That's the final divorce draft. Signed. Filed. I didn't send it yet because I wanted you to see it first. Her hand shook as she picked it up. You can't mean this. I do, I said simply. And here's the thing. You'll get everything you came into the marriage with. I'm not taking a dime from you. But the car, the one I paid off, that stays with me. The apartment, mine. You walked away from the life I built for you the night you laughed at me, like I was a joke. She looked like the ground had disappeared under her feet. Daniel, you can't just throw away 7 years. I smiled faintly. No, you already did. I'm just cleaning up what's left. She tried to reach for my arm, but I stepped back. Her perfume, once something I loved, now just smelled like someone else's memory. Then, in a moment of desperation, she whispered, I can't do this alone. I looked her in the eye. You should have thought about that before you made me feel alone every night for a year. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shouting match ever could. She finally turned away, whispering something like, I'm sorry, though it sounded more like habit than truth. When the door closed behind her, I exhaled slowly. The apartment felt lighter. That evening, I went to work as usual. Tony noticed the change right away. You seem different, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Yeah, I said, tightening a bolt on the engine. Guess I finally fixed the biggest wreck of my life. He laughed. That's one way to put it. In the weeks that followed, I didn't hear from Lila. Not directly, but word traveled fast in small towns. People at her office started whispering. Apparently, Grant's promotion had been a lie. He was married, too, to the regional manager's daughter. When that came out, he was fired. Lila lost her job soon after for office misconduct. The woman who once thought she was untouchable was now floating, jobless, alone, and publicly humiliated. I didn't celebrate it. I just watched it unfold quietly. One afternoon, Tony walked into the garage holding a manila envelope. This came for you, he said. No return address. Inside were divorce papers signed. No note, no message, just finality. I stared at them for a long time before folding them neatly and placing them in my drawer. That night, I took a drive down to the same restaurant where everything had fallen apart. It was quieter now. I parked outside, turned off the engine, and sat there, staring through the glass windows of the table we'd once shared. The laughter that used to haunt me was gone. The ghosts of that night had lost their power. I didn't need to ruin her life. She'd already done that herself. My revenge wasn't about destroying her. It was about reclaiming myself. I rolled down the window, let the evening air hit my face, and whispered, almost smiling, enjoy your main course, Lila. I'm done serving. Then I drove off into the city lights, free for the first time in years. A month passed. The papers were final. Her name gone from my mailbox, her scent gone from my sheets. You'd think that kind of emptiness would sting, but it didn't. It felt like breathing for the first time in years. Every morning, I woke before sunrise, made strong black coffee, and opened the garage early. I'd forgotten what peace sounded like until those quiet hours, just tools clinking, country radio humming softly, and no phone vibrating with lies in the background. One morning, while refilling oil cans, Tony nudged me. "You've been smiling lately. New woman in the picture?" I grinned faintly. "Nah, just a new life." He laughed. "That's even better." But the truth was, I had met someone. Not romantically, not yet. Her name was Claire Benson, a customer who brought in her late father's old pickup to restore. She was calm, thoughtful, the kind of woman who asked questions because she cared, not because she wanted to catch you in a mistake. We'd talk while I worked, her sipping coffee, me explaining engine parts. No flirting, no rush, just two people quietly understanding each other's scars. "Why do you love fixing old things?" she asked one afternoon. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Because old things remember loyalty," I said simply. "They just need someone who won't give up on them." She smiled in a way that didn't demand anything. And for once, that was enough. I didn't tell her about Lila. I didn't need to. My past wasn't a wound anymore. It was a lesson. But fate has a strange way of testing whether you've really healed. It was a Friday evening when Lila showed up again. This time outside the garage. She wasn't in designer clothes. No heels. No perfect hair. Just jeans, a gray hoodie, and eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. "Daniel," she said softly, "can we talk?" Tony glanced at me, uncertain. I nodded for him to give us space. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated before saying, "I wanted to apologize. For everything. For humiliating you that night. For making you feel small." "You didn't make me small," I replied evenly. "You made yourself smaller." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was stupid, Daniel. I thought success was measured by attention, by who looked at me, who admired me. But the only man who ever truly loved me was the one I made a fool of." I crossed my arms. "And now?" She swallowed hard. "Now I have nothing. I lost my job. Grant's gone. My friends stopped answering my calls. I don't even have my apartment anymore. I'm staying with my cousin. She barely talks to me." I studied her quietly. For the first time, I saw genuine regret. Not manipulation, not a show. Just the wreckage she'd built with her own hands. "I'm not here to get you back," she continued, trembling. "I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What I threw away." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. There was a time I would have taken her back in an instant. But that man was gone. "Lila," I said finally, "I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. Holding on to hate would just keep me chained to the version of us that died that night." Her voice cracked. "You really mean that?" "Yeah," I said softly. "But forgiveness isn't an invitation. It's closure." She nodded, tears falling freely. "You're a better man than I ever was a wife." I offered a small smile. "Maybe one day, you'll learn to love someone without needing to compare him to anyone else." She stepped back, whispering, "Goodbye, Daniel." "Goodbye, Lila." When she left, the air felt lighter. No triumph, no satisfaction, just calm. The storm had finally passed. That weekend, Claire stopped by again. "You seem peaceful," she said, handing me a cup of coffee. I admitted, for the first time in a long time. We sat on the hood of her old truck, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. For once, there was no need to fill the silence. After a while, she asked, "What happened to the woman before?" I took a deep breath. "She taught me what love isn't." Claire smiled faintly. "Sometimes, that's the most valuable lesson." The sound of crickets filled the air as the day dimmed. The world moved on, and so did I. Months later, I heard that Lila had left town, moved to another state, trying to rebuild her life. I didn't wish her pain. I just wished her wisdom. One evening, while locking up the garage, I caught my reflection in the window. Same man, same hands, but a different heart. I wasn't the starter anymore. I was the full course, complete, grounded, and finally enough for myself. As I walked home under the fading light, I realized something. Revenge hadn't been about making her suffer. It had been about proving, to both of us, that I could walk away, stand tall, and never look back. When I reached my apartment, I poured a drink, sat on the balcony, and let the city hum below me. I thought of everything she'd said that night at dinner, how everyone had laughed. And now, the irony made me smile. Because in the end, the man she mocked as the appetizer turned out to be the one who knew how to save her peace. while the ones chasing main courses were left hungry forever. And that was the sweetest meal of all.